Hello, I'm Jonasz Rewiński and you're watching Break the Fake. They make them, we break them, and tell you everything you need to know. This week, the Ukrainian internet with a new symbol of wartime absurdity. An Italian guy in a traditional embroidered shirt heading to Bila Tserkva and praising Putin along the way. The story is so surreal, it could seem made up if it weren't for video proof, eyewitness accounts, and a very real entry refusal card. Now, the story unfolded on a bus traveling from Italy to Ukraine. An Italian citizen named Rocco, dressed in a vyshyvanka, which, as it turned out, was a gift from his Ukrainian girlfriend, initially looked quite peaceful, smiling, very talkative, just like a real-life tourist. But as soon as he heard that there was a Ukrainian woman nearby, the conversation took a sharp turn. According to a Ukrainian girl named Daria, she was the recipient of Rocco's stream of geopolitical analysis. The man began to talk about how bad Ukraine is, how we have the wrong president, we meaning the Ukrainians, and how he respects Vladimir Putin because he is allegedly a strong leader. All the while wearing a Ukrainian embroidered shirt, traveling to a home in Ukraine as Russia wages war against his host country. This is no longer a beige flag, you see. This one's as red as the Soviet banner, and for a good reason, apparently. The cynicism of the situation is off the charts. A person enjoying the hospitality of a country while openly supporting that same country's aggressor and its campaign of destruction. The only thing missing from completing the picture is a St. George ribbon on the man's chest. The black and yellow thing popular among Russian warmongers, often folded neatly in a letter Z. But that probably wouldn't have matched the guy's outfit. The man is from Italy, remember? They are good at that fashion stuff. Anyway, the Ukrainian girl decided that this was not going to be a case of keeping quiet and walking away. She publicly stated that supporters of Russian aggression have no place in Ukraine, warning that she would contact the relevant authorities to take care of her Italian traveling companion. The internet did the rest. The story instantly went viral, and tens of thousands of people followed the developments on Threads as if it were a real-life version of the Diddy documentary. And spoiler alert, the guy really met his reckoning towards the end. When the bus arrived at the Chop-Zahony checkpoint, Rocco was already an expected guest, so to speak. Ukraine's State Border Service confirmed that the information had been taken into account and that all control procedures required by law had been carried out with regard to the Italian citizen. According to journalists, Ukraine's security service has also been made aware of the case. The outcome was prosaic but fair. The Italian was denied entry and banned from staying in Ukraine for the next 3 years. The moral of the story is simple, although not obvious to some European experts in embroidered shirts and all that. National clothing, you see, is not supposed to be a camouflage for foreign propaganda. An embroidered shirt does not automatically make you a friend of Ukraine, just as words evoking respect for Putin cannot exist without consequence. In other words, if you're a fan of Ruski Mir, don't go expecting La Dolce Vita in downtown Kiev. Something happened in Russia that would have been considered almost blasphemous just a few years ago. They publicly acknowledged that the oil and gas gold mine is no longer golden, and actually no longer profitable either. The Russian Ministry of Finance, without raising its voice too much, stated that the massive profits from oil and gas are now a thing of the past. According to estimates by the Russian Ministry of Finance, the share of oil and gas revenues in the budget, which until recently reached about 50%, will fall to 23% this year. And this, as officials themselves emphasize, is not even the bottom of it. Even more interesting indicators await us, apparently. In other words, say goodbye to the hydrocarbon cash cow, comrades. As always, the explanation is as cautious as possible. The Russian Ministry of Finance talks about the depletion of low-cost hydrocarbon reserves. No emotion, no details, no mention of the word war. Sanctions? Geopolitics? loss of markets, Ukrainian drones buzzing around oil infrastructure. No, they haven't heard anything about that. It just happened, they say, cheap oil was extracted and expensive oil is, not quite so nice. It's a natural process, like aging, only without a pension. India and China have become the new main buyers of Russian oil, but the deal here looks more like a fire sale. And sometimes that's literally spot on when you look at the Russian refineries, by the way. According to experts, in 2024 and 2025, Russia often sold oil at the break-even point, or even at a loss. The paradox is that there is a way out of this whole situation. The magic spell called ending the war. But then, should we assume our geopolitical schoolyard bully knows anything about economics, growth, or rational statecraft? Try lecturing your average bully on the benefits of good grades, one day landing him a fantastic salary, affording him an upmarket house, a posh car, and luxury holidays, and then catch him red-handed as they take to their classmate's locker with a can of spray paint. Again, some people just never learn. Simple as that. We agree with everything, so we are patient and will continue to be patient. These words could very well be the new unofficial slogan for today's average Moscow consumer. Against the backdrop of rapidly rising prices, residents of the Russian capital are constantly talking about what they have been forced to save on. And this list increasingly resembles a survival guide rather than a household budget.
Очень странные цены, если что, на все, и заработки. Мы тоже идем рассуждаем, как жить. Вроде как-то живем, знаете, не унывай называется. Иногда, знаете, кажется, что если заплатить за съемную квартиру, то надо еще чуть-чуть украсть, чтобы что-то купить себе. Ничего страшного, пока не надо.
Пока.
Это пока, да. Может быть, до этого дойдем.
Если что, вырежьте нас, если где-то услышите, что что-то где-то кто-то украл.
Да, вы нас не показываете. Не прикрепляйте, знаете, там внизу такое видео, там две девки зашли, там что-то поели и убежали, не заплатили. На самом деле, грустновато, честно.
А на чем приходится экономить?
Экономить, на одежде в том числе.
А на чем приходится экономить больше всего?
На еде.
На лекарствах. На лекарствах.
Now, one respondent's statement attracted particular attention. We're not stealing yet, but maybe we'll get there someday. Sounds like something out of a dark comedy, but with a hint of economic forecast. In a country where prices are rising faster than wages, and stability exists mainly on television, the line between joke and reality is becoming increasingly blurred, you see. At the same time, most of the interviewees demonstrate an astonishing level of loyalty. It has to be this way. These are difficult times, as long as it doesn't get worse. It seems that patience has been declared a renewable resource, unlike savings. If you run out of money, you can always get a little more patience. Not that you can pay your bills with it, but it is there. This is what economists would call a decline in purchasing power. Sociologists would call it adaptation to a crisis. But for ordinary people, it's way simpler than that. We eat less, buy less, and talk less, at least in public. The main thing is not to ask unnecessary questions and not spoil the overall picture of stability. The paradox is that Moscow is a city of glitzy shop windows, expensive cars, and vocal declarations of economic stability. But behind the facade, it is increasingly common to hear not the sound of cash registers, but quiet sighs at the sight of the latest price tags. And while citizens proudly declare that they are not stealing yet, the state seems to be quite satisfied. A patient people is the cheapest resource, you see. It does not need indexation, it does not go to rallies, state repression also helps on that one, by the way, and it is always ready to tighten its belt another notch or two. Just keep saying Russia is a major superpower, push those burning refineries, a creaking budget and those brittle international allies aside, and all will be fine.